Hi, everybody. Welcome back to a very, very special edition, new episode of The Vocal. Here with me from across the country, your horizontal and south of me, is basically the co-conspirator in this entire thing. You've been playing this game with me for the last, let's say, 2 years of recording, and maybe we should release some of those old practice recordings at some point, and then we can react to them. Tara Simon style. We have here my best friend from college, Alec. Alec, do you want to tell everybody where you're calling in from today?
Hello. Yes. Well, I am currently coming to you from Keesler Air Force Base in scenic Biloxi, Mississippi. So I am very far, both in distance and in spirit, from Los Angeles right now.
Yeah, you are spiritually in a couple worlds apart from this coast. Alec, what brought you there? Was it just a nice little vacation?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it nice or little or a vacation, but it's basically that. Yeah,
Got it.
I'm here for 2 months to do some training, and then I get out of here on April 3rd. Very much looking forward to it, and I'll be heading to sunny Albuquerque, New Mexico. So still due south, but also due west, which I think will be an improvement, all things considered.
You've been touring the Heartland in a military capacity for the last 8 months?
Yes,
9 months?
that's right. It'll be 8 months next week, which is crazy. And of all the places that I've been, I'll say I'm glad that I'm gonna end up semi-permanently in Albuquerque and not San Antonio or Biloxi. And speaking of Biloxi, I have to apologize for any background noise. There are a lot of college age airmen, we'll say, who are enjoying the nice Sunday evening weather out here. So I will try to avoid them, but not much I can do.
That is not a sentence I don't think I've ever been able to say. So that in and of itself is a serve. And it, from my perspective, kind of sounds like coyotes, every other one. So, whether it's animals or college-aged airmen or both, it sounds like a really interesting, good time. And I can hear like little sprinkles of like the southern bugs. Is that true? Are there like cicadas or something?
True, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are currently awaiting the emergence of our cicada broods. I think it's happening in May. But yes, there are definitely some bugs out because it's unseasonably warm. It's like 70 degrees and it's the first weekend of March. So they're out early.
I picture it as kind of like an end of world, like biblical thing when those things open. Isn't it every 5 years or something like that? Don't they have some sort of hatch cycle?
Yeah, well, there's different broods, and they all are in different parts of the country, and they all operate on different cycles. I think most of them are on
Woof.
17-year cycles, and some of them are on 13-year cycles. And this year
17.
this year happens to be overlapping broods. So there's two different broods on two different cycles that just so happen to have a common year this year. So this is going to be like the worst year for cicadas since the 19th century or something like that. I would have to look it up, but I remember reading that and thinking, well, that sucks.
Well, perhaps that's why in the pop world, all of the pop girlies are releasing music. They're trying to save you from this imminent doom.
My God, you're right. The pop girls are literally the cicadas, and all of their album cycles are now spontaneously aligning. That is crazy.
Right. It's like a cicada cycle, but for all the main and side pop girlies, of which there are, I don't know, 12 to 15 in front of me. So y'all, today we'll cover a few things, but it feels to both of us, we realized that 2024, as it's slowly ramping into like a very quick ascent, is going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, main pop girly release years that we've ever seen. Perhaps second to or first to 2016, which was a huge year. Maybe not so much, not to gender it, but not so much about just the pop girls, but just pop and pop adjacent music. It felt like was so big in 2016. And then all of a sudden now, almost in a way that you couldn't imagine it ever happening again. And then here we are 4 years after the pandemic, almost to the day, like in a week, it will have been 4 years that we were all sent home for, quote unquote, 2 weeks. And everyone's releasing. Maybe before we get into that, Alec, do you want to how do we know each other? Like where do we go back to, and what do our text messages tend to look like?
Well, it's crazy. I always kind of think about it at this time of year because we actually met in February. I don't know if you remember that, but
I don't remember the February connection.
Well, so I was a freshman at Middlebury, and you were a junior, and I'm sorry, I was a first year. We're not going to gender our college years.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was auditioning for our gender inclusive a cappella group, the
Right.
Middlebury Bobolinks. And actually, we met for real, I want to say February, because that was the audition cycle that I was actually admitted to the Bobolinks. I actually auditioned in the fall of my first year and did not get in. So you would have seen me. We would have been in each other's presence in the same room, but we would not have actually established a personal connection because I was rejected from the group at that point. But, you know,
Sounds like such
like
an
Elizabeth
intense
Warren,
word.
I persevered like Elizabeth Warren and came back. And 6 months later, I auditioned again, and the outcome was different that time. And so that was the point at which we actually became friends in February of 2011. And we were only in the group together for how long?
Like
would it have
3
been?
semesters, maybe.
Right, because you graduated in 2012.
12.
So
Yeah.
it only would have been that first semester in 2011, and then the next year, fall of 2011 to spring of 2012. So we didn't overlap for that long, really.
Well, you know, not long in Earth time, but spiritually, that overlap felt like, you know, a lifetime and a half. Like I felt like we got so much out of that. I will speak personally. I got so much out of that overlap. That was a whole beautiful chapter of like the latter third of my college career. We had a good little group within the group, and like we started to like I don't know, just muse over things like pop music and side projects, and we have very different walks, and our friend Claire too. Remember, we would just like hang out and eat food, and like everyone, we were all doing very different things with our lives, but it suddenly became like a very different experience than it had been for me in the group before that. And for anyone that's like younger than millennial, I felt like college a cappella during the millennial years of like the early 2010s was such a lightning rod for anyone that was attracted to like pop or pop adjacent or alternative music, to like hive mind. And then it became the place where like people would like watch YouTube videos in their house for I don't know, 6 hours after going out and like imitate riffs. And I don't know, it felt to me kind of like the musicians found themselves in a way through that medium for a really long time. That was like the a cappella heyday too of the TV shows and the movies.
Completely.
Yeah.
I mean, that time period was Glee, which I know is not
totally
a
Glee.
cappella, but has a little bit of that same sort of reinterpretation of pop music kind of bent to it. But then also the sing-off was in its prime, and I think that was right about the time the first Pitch Perfect movie came out too, right?
Yeah, it was all at once. It was wild. And it was like the folks that were behind all of those projects were generally the same little collection of people who were like pitching the songs or writing the arrangements and everything. And our little like dog and pony show up in rural Vermont, like, you know, we did our best, but both of us wrote a lot of arrangements, and we were trying to like, and you directed for how many semesters?
Just 2. I did it my junior spring and my senior fall.
Right. It's definitely a serve to relinquish in your senior spring to someone else and be like, I'm not doing this anymore.
It was the best thing ever.
Yeah.
The best thing ever. Yes.
I think I did the same thing. I can't remember. But yes, so we're creatives, and well, we have very different lives now. We don't see each other all that often. We do. Our text messages in some capacity can and should be monetized through all means necessary, because they contain the annals of the last like 12 years of pop music, probably even more, with more rich detail than any of the combined Wikipedia pages do, because it's Wikipedia and all of the different like liner notes and citations and tour lists and all the things you can like scrapbook together using the internet, plus the hot takes, you know. And like,
well, okay, I have to ask you about that, because how far back do your text messages go? Like, does your phone delete your texts, or how far back could you scroll?
That's a great question. I've probably had 4 phones since we were friends, and I don't think the first 2, actually probably 5, and I don't think the first 2 of the iPhones were backed up in the way that they are now. And honestly, Alec, I was looking for something in our text from 3 days ago, and it took me so many scrolls that I like gave up.
Yes.
So
yes,
like I could sit here as like an endurance test and then carpal tunnel myself into like.
Oh yeah, no.
But I'm not sure.
Well,
if you search it, maybe it tells you.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I was just curious because my phone deletes texts every
quickly.
year. So once a text is a year old, it's gone. And that's just because my phone is too full of other things to keep them around. But I agree, to even go back a week or a month would be sitting at the phone, scroll for however long. So
For very
yeah,
long.
it's an exercise in futility.
It is, unfortunately. I hope that some cloud server contains it in some searchable capacity, and then AI can like crawl it and I don't know, put some AI voice, and then we can just release that as the podcast at some point. Just narrations.
It would honestly be pretty good.
It would be fantastic. I saw a new AI voice creation today of Ariana speaking German.
Oh my God.
It's really scary.
Wow.
AI is really scary. Well, so in an attempt to I don't know, I think those 10 years have set us up very, very well. We have now a long history of having discussed this and volleyed this stuff back and forth. I think 2016 as a year stands out in my mind. And then please tell me how it lives in your mind as just the time when it was, as you and I have shared before, we encode musical memories because of what's going on in our life for sure. And I was having a great year. It was one of my, I don't know, peak years of that time of my life. It was my favorite year in my 20s. And then it was all of the musical releases that fed me. It was also the year of gospel pop was coming into fashion the way that house and country are in fashion in the pop world now. And I really, really loved that. It was gospel pop and R&B. The releases were it was kind of Aaron Allen Kane's first bubbling up, and the Chance the Rapper and that sound. Yebo was out there for the first time. And then the major releases were one after the other, after the other, after the other. We had just had Adele's 25, which was so big in the winter before. I think we had just had Demi Lovato's Tell Me You Love Me, which had the gospel pop single Sorry Not Sorry, which is still one of my favorite things she's ever done. And then the new year brought Beyonce's Lemonade, which stands up. We don't even need to really discuss the how big that was. Frank Ocean released the double album shortly thereafter. What else am I missing? I felt there were so many.
Well, the big one that immediately comes to my mind,
Ariana Grande.
Ariana Dangerous Woman, but then also the last Rihanna album, Anti, was I think January of 2016.
Wow. She hasn't released anything since. That's amazing. Yeah, so 2016
just songs here and there, but no album.
And then as of social media today, she apparently took a page out of Beyonce's book and took a check for a wedding in not Dubai, but it was in India. Did you see any of these videos? She performed for the first time in 8 years.
I did, and it was pretty funny.
It was. She's going through the motions, collecting her check.
Which, get it. Honestly, get it.
Oh, yeah, work. Although, I do live for the commenters that are well, can we talk about the sociopolitics of where this money is coming from? But, she's
no, shut up.
Right. The appropriate answer to that is no.
Before we move on to 2024, there's a couple others from 2016 that I am remembering. So I am not at all a big Drake fan, but I will say that Views was a huge album in a way that permeated even into my consciousness. So if you remember Hotline Bling, One Dance,
huge.
Too Good, the Rihanna feature, that was a huge album. Then it was also the tail end of Purpose, the Justin Bieber album. So this is the biggest pop song she's ever done. What Do You Mean? Sorry, Love Yourself. And Sia also. This Is Acting. And what was the other one?
Oh my goodness.
No, 1000 Forms of Fear was earlier. But this was Sia, This Is Acting.
It was her second album of the two that were putting her into the pop world in a really big way. She was a known name at that point. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, there was so much. And even still, there's probably even more. I think 2015, was that also the first Jess Glynne album, or was that 14? Maybe 15?
No, you're right. That was 15.
So we were 15. You and I both, we just exchanged, or you sent me a tour video from the Jess Glynne tour. And then it reminded me that 2 months later, I went to that same tour in the winter time, somewhere in the winter, spring. Yeah, there was a lot. And maybe Taylor, where was Taylor? Taylor was on the tail end of 1989, right? And then pre-Reputation.
Well, 2016 is famously Taylor's
it was the dead year.
Because if you remember, It was the dead year because up until that point in her career, she first released in '06, and every album cycle from then on was every 2 years in October or November. So she released in '06, '08, 10, 12, 14. She gets to 16, and it was like the perfect storm of bad publicity and things that she didn't want to comment publicly on. So you remember first it was the whole relationship dissolving with Calvin Harris because they co-wrote that song that Rihanna featured on, and then they had this weird spat in the press about it when he made some comment that she didn't like, and then they ended up breaking up because they were dating at the time. And then immediately it was the Kanye feud with the Kim Kardashian releasing
the leaked video
audio of the phone call, exactly, like the proving that Taylor lied about whatever it was that she lied about. And then, of course, this was the Hillary versus Trump election year, and it was very en vogue for pop artists to come out against Trump and for Hillary. If you remember, Katy Perry doing the campaign stops for Hillary, and Beyonce and Jay-Z rallied for her and all that. But Taylor was still trying to walk this very delicate line between appealing to the gays, the urban sort of progressive intellectual forefront of the country, while also kind of clinging to her ancestral audience of like the white country girls who are more conservative or even apolitical. And so she made some different decisions about how to not engage during that year. And I think strategically, after all of the Kanye Kim stuff went down, she just decided this is a great excuse for me to just burrow away and hide and say nothing while this very controversial election is taking place. So she was not actually in the picture at the time, which maybe was part of the reason why there was so much space for other projects to breathe. I don't know.
Right. And I think the thing that pulled her out of that, at least on the political front, was not even the presidential race, right? Wasn't it like a congressional off election year thing in her home state or something like that? And it was like some anti-abortion crusader or something like that, and that was like what finally woke her up. And I think it was captured in the one of the documentaries that she released is the only memory I have of that.
She got a lot of flack for sitting out 2016, and I think she realized she would not be able to do that again at her level. And so in 2018 she came out and she endorsed Phil Bredesen, who was the former governor of Tennessee, a Democrat who was running for Senate. There was an open Senate seat and he was running against Marsha Blackburn, who is truly one of the worst people to ever walk the face of the earth.
That's the one. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But of course, he didn't win. She won. So her endorsement was for naught. But she at least realized that she had to get off the sidelines.
So she not only sat it out, she waited another like year and a half, 2 years. That's crazy.
Yes.
It's hard to remember these timelines.
Yeah.
Yeah. That took quite a long time. And then now she's somehow the biggest pop star in the entire world and pretty political, right? Or like maybe more like social political than expressly US political, but there's so much press about her getting involved in the election. She hasn't yet this year, right? But there's so much expectation about like who she will apply her endorsement to and how that may change, like turn the tides of what's going on early right now. And Beyonce as well as the two titans.
Absolutely. I mean, Taylor, if memory serves, did endorse Biden in 2020. But definitely. Even since then, her star has magnified 100-fold, which is kind of insane to say, considering how famous and powerful she was back then. But she is now, I would say, probably the single most powerful and influential celebrity on the planet. At least I can't think of an immediate counterexample. So I think that her endorsement, should she choose to offer one this time, will be impactful in a way that it wasn't last time.
She and Beyonce have unlocked a level of social prestige and power that literally I don't think existed back then. So in a way, what you just said, it's like she was a version of what she is now then, but no one was at the level that she's at now then. And now it's her and Beyonce. Like we've unlocked a new level. And the club that they roll in, like the Billionaires Club, maybe being like the other folks on that list, they are very powerful in many other ways, but people don't necessarily listen to them. At least like the youth doesn't listen to them, and they don't seem to control culture the way that these singers do, who are like pop culture icons among many other things. Do you think there's I had not thought about it as an election year vis-a-vis like a big release year for all of these pop girls, it seems almost auspicious that like on these election cycles, 2020 was kind of a big year, but because of the pandemic, I think a lot of even the folks on this list that we'll start going through like withheld albums, or some broke through and chose to release them anyway, famously like Future Nostalgia and Chromatica, but others withheld. Do you think there's anything to the like be out and vocal and on the tour trail in a year where there's a huge American election going on, or do you just think it's like random cycles syncing up?
That is a great question, and I don't know the answer. I do think that presidential election years definitely have a special feel about them, just in the sense that narratively the year seems to be building towards something at the end of it, and so everything just feels a little bit more heightened because there is this competitive framework around which everything else is revolving. So it's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing. I don't know whether the election cycle causes the album releases or if it just heightens what would already have been there and causes us to interpret it in a different way.
Yeah, and it's maybe even subconscious, and not necessarily all of these musicians are American, but I think the majority of who we've listed are, as we start talking about them. But it is almost subconscious, and maybe there's just energetically something to the every 4-year thing. Like artists usually really the big pop artists, it feels like when they're peaking go on like a 2 to 3 year cycle, but the ones that are like a little bit more in their like steady state, I think it's usually 4. So maybe it's kind of both random and subconscious. But just looking at the size of this list alone, I can't even imagine the amount of like tour infrastructure that's going into supporting however many of these artists that are releasing major albums this year decide to go out on the road. You know, like there's only so many tour companies, there's only so many venues, and there's only so many like roadies. I mean, maybe let's just walk through. Like, so the year started with J-Lo, who I have not consumed almost anything of other than like the ancillary press around like her SNL appearance and IO having some things to say. The big one, the one that feels like energetically connected to us right now, is Ariana Grande. On Friday of this coming week, she'll release Eternal Sunshine, right? Kacey Musgraves will release. See, I didn't write all the dates down, but she's the next one in line. Then
Deeper
followed
Well.
by Deeper Well, which we've got 2 songs from so far. We'll focus on those, like those few today. Then ahead we have Justin Timberlake having said that he's coming out with something this year and already started promoting it. Obviously Beyonce, Taylor Swift, those are in a sense back to back, which is so wild. And just on the heels of their most recent tour cycles, movie theater promotions, like the seismic stuff that was happening quite literally just this last summer, it feels so quick. I can't believe it's not just one of them, but it's both of them putting out an album between mid-March and mid-April. It's wild to me. Like they are in control in a way that I just can't, it's almost I can't reckon with. Maybe not a major or a main pop girly, but Jess Glynne, who I think kind of like birthed the disco pop genre in the way that we still continue to see it today, or at least opened the floodgates back up. She's releasing in late April. Then we have a lot of no date yet releases, but known releases that are coming. So Dua Lipa, her 3rd album, is that right? Her 3rd one?
Yeah. Yep.
The often criticized, the kind of like the folklore around this artist is so high, and we did get not a release date, but a release announcement, which is Normani. Also, her sister in Fifth Harmony, Camila, seems to be building to a release this year. Maren Morris, who has exiled herself, from country music.
Yep.
Oddly enough, as country music is being claimed by almost half of this list, hilariously, she's said, no, I'm done with it. Is working on a record with Jack Antonoff to be released this year. So far has only released a cover, but like a little bit of a amuse-bouche of the sound that she's going with, which if you're working with Jack Antonoff, it's generally like alternative rock in the style of his band Bleachers, or something in the vein of like Lana Del Rey or Taylor Swift's Folklore. Speak of the devil, Lana Del Rey is releasing this year. Shakira is releasing this year. We just found out that Charli XCX is releasing this year and just released a banger like not 3 days ago. Selena Gomez is either rumored or confirmed to be releasing this year. 2 alternative kind of like alt rock girlies announced. So Clairo is releasing this year, another muse / maven of Jack Antonoff. At least one of her big albums, or one of her albums, was from him. Saint Vincent is releasing this year. And then there are rumors, tell me if I've named all of them, of Lady Gaga, which feels like, I don't know about that one, but maybe. Have you heard or read anything?
There was some teasing going on by her. So if it's not happening, then at least people are not crazy for thinking it could be happening, put it that way.
Oh, she teased it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, she, let me see if I can find exactly what she said. Let's see.
Dig that up. And then the other 3 are Katy Perry, rumor, Billie Eilish, rumor, and Sia, rumor. Sia is the only one of that bunch that I saw anything to support the rumors. She like changed her, maybe because I follow her, she changed her logos or her icons, or like maybe the banner on Spotify was changed. So it seems like she has an album to release this year. So, I mean, all told, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. That's 21 like pretty big pop artists releasing full scale albums, and maybe 15 at the least are going to happen. And like up to, 21, or let's say 2024 could be released this year. That is wild. That's an average of like 1 to 2 a month, which is pretty, it's pretty significant.
So the Gaga thing is just pictures from the recording studio. So that might be a little wishful thinking on the part of the fans, because if we're going to go that deep, then there's another, I would say, main pop girl who has been quote unquote teasing from the studio since about December.
Oh,
basically the only one that you haven't named yet. I don't know if you could think of them off the top of your head. Who have
a main pop girl?
I would say a main pop girl whose last album was in 2021, tends to release every 3 to 4 years.
Pop? Like center lane pop?
I would say so. I mean, she has done different styles throughout her different albums, but she is definitely in the main pop girl stratosphere.
Let's see. Well, on the young bunch, we've got Billie on the list. Olivia is definitely not releasing this, or she's touring. Right. On the millennial bunch, I don't know. You'll have to tell me.
See, it's someone who straddles that line very, very closely. I'm not even sure if this
is it Miley?
No, it's Lorde.
Oh my God. Interesting. Lorde to release new album. Who on this like giant master list do you think is going to like serve it to us? Like, who's going to really knock this out of the park?
All right. Well, I may be biased here, but the first name that comes to mind is Beyonce. I would say Beyonce. I would say Dua, based on what we've heard so far, is going to serve it to us.
Yeah, and they've been good.
My top 3 would be those 2, and gosh, I might say Charli, honestly. I have been really into what she's been doing recently. But okay, now I want to hear yours.
The Charli single, we'll flesh out our respective fandoms, like the Venn diagram, throughout our episodes, like me, you, and where our overlap is of who we like, not just fan, but maybe like stan. And I don't know if you would you say you stan Charli?
I think I would, yeah. I think that I'm an angel. I'm an angel.
Is that what her fandom is called? I didn't know that.
Well, Charlie's Angels, naturally.
Oh my God. My millennial old aging mind is blown. I think based on just Charli's single, it's such a banger. I would not expect to like a new release from Charli this much, because I generally am kind of middling on it. This thing is so good. It's so good. So I'm really looking forward to that. Well, of all of these artists, we only have one body of work and I haven't listened to it yet. So that's Jennifer Lopez. So I think that's enough on its own that you haven't listened to it. Yeah, that's the data. I said in a previous episode in this pod that I don't think Ariana's is going to be a home run. I think it will have glimmers. She always has spots of genius. She's a brilliant musician. I don't think this body of work is going to be it, capital I.
I agree.
I love the single. Those that are like around her are, saying it's incredible, that have heard it, and that like, she's kind of queen of the faux leak of, as you and I have both now watched this video that she uploaded to her YouTube of like showing the label representatives, and they're obviously so excited about it because they're paid to be excited about it in a way. I don't think they would lie to her, but if we're seeing a video of the final edits, they've already heard it like 3 times. So anyway, I don't think that's going to be one of them. I think it's an analog to Mariah's Charm Bracelet. As I've said, it's the bridge to the Emancipation album. So when the Emancipation of Ari comes out, I think that'll be the home run. I am actually kind of stoked about Kacey because I did not love the most recent album, and we can unpack that one a little bit. But Golden Hour was so amazing that I know that she has high highs, and I would love if this one, maybe not in a pop way, but in like a singer-songwriter way, I would love if someone on this list, instead of going country, as the tide seems to be moving, went more singer-songwriter. Like the 2000s nostalgia pop has been so strong kind of since the pandemic. Like the one that I latched to initially was Rina Sawayama. She was the one who like showed me that the sound was coming back of like the boy band, girl band, Britney Spears era. And she was such an incredible like vessel of it, but she didn't really pop off in the way that she could have. What it did for me was it made me think, what are the other 2000s genres that I would love to come back? One of them is the like Sheryl Crow. I would love early 2000s Sheryl Crow. And I think if anyone on this list can do it, I think it's her. So if that's what she puts out, I would really love that. I think, I mean, I'm not going to be listening to the Taylor album. Like I'll listen to
I refuse.
What I'm forced to listen to because it's on outside, or it's on social media. I wasn't stoked about the Beyonce going country at first because it seemed to me that she was trend chasing for the second time in the last few years. It felt like she was a little late to house, and now it feels like she's a little late to country, but she's doing something so different in a storytelling capacity with these genres. So I think it'll be a complete serve, and she'll work with the best of the best. And the production will be so incredible. So I'd say that one. And then, I want to say Maren Morris because I love her so much. And her most recent album was my favorite. So she's coming off of a high, but usually that's not a sign that the next one's going to be even higher. And I don't know if alt rock Maren is going to hit the way that like soft country Maren did on, I almost said Golden Hour, but no, the last album was called
Humble Quest.
Humble Quest. That was a no skips album for me. I loved it so much. So she's maybe, as far as my taste levels, she's maybe peaked. Not that she couldn't peak again, but back to back seems unlikely. So maybe my wild card will be also Charli. Maybe this will be the one. Seeing as nothing in Charli's full discography has like front to back connected with me, maybe this is the one. So maybe I'll say Charli.
I would love
too.
that. I would honestly love that. I would live for that.
I would feel more authentically queer if that happened. I feel like I'm missing something. I've been waiting. Like, I'm not shaming myself, but I'm like, what am I missing? So, all right, pre-Ariana, what I said in my earlier episode, that maybe like a handful of you, right, have listened to a fragment of, was I do think if you consider the kind of like age-old comparison of Ariana to Mariah on their respective trajectories, obviously, probably like 25 years apart as they're peaking, ish. I could do the math better. I think Ariana's in one of the dips. I think she's riding her career more sustainably, certainly more sustainably as a singer. But again, I think this will be her Charm Bracelet album. And I guess my last comment, and then I really want to hear what you're expecting, is for her to release a house hit was so cute like a month ago when it came out, and it's a great song. I don't know if a whole house album, I think if it is like that, by the third track, I'm going to be like, nah, you kind of missed it. Like, it's going to be great, but you missed it. Like, how do you feel about, what do you think from the genre perspective? And like, if you were, how about we could do this? What is your anticipatory pitchfork ranking without hearing any of it for Ariana's Eternal Sunshine?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll say this. I am excited to hear Ariana Grande music that is not her sort of whispering over trap beats because she really got stuck in that lane for a couple albums.
Yeah.
Uh, I loved what she did on Thank You Next. I think that she really cornered the market on that album, but then she kind of carried it over to Positions, and I felt like Positions was not enough of an evolution for me to really get behind. There are individual songs on the album that I absolutely adore, but I didn't connect with it the way that I had pretty much all of her three previous albums. So just to see her moving away from that and into something different for her, even if it's something that we've heard a lot of in the zeitgeist recently,
Sure.
I'm happy with that. But I agree. I am hoping that it is not going to be an album full of yes ands because yes and is a great song, but I think the track list was pretty long. I think it was like 14, 15, 16 tracks, something like that.
Oh
And
my goodness.
in an album of that length, you have to be a little bit more versatile. So I'm hoping that we get a little bit more variety from her. I don't think that she's, quite frankly, for me, I don't think she's ever going to top Dangerous Woman for me. I think that was the peak of her career and always will be.
DW.
But I would love to be proven wrong.
Dangerous Woman was also a long album, and as you came to the realization so much sooner than I did. I think my pop taste level was considerably, like measurably more basic back then, and I was just living for the front half, which was all the singles, and then like as singles do, they flamed out. I got a little bored of them. The single Dangerous Woman's kind of a strange song. It's a little.
I actually don't really like that song.
It's
We're not gonna lie. I
loud.
love the album.
It's like
might be my least favorite
slow.
on the album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
It's
weird
plod.
song.
She's plotting.
It's
She's plotting
plod.
like Bonnie.
Plod pop, right? Like that was of the time.
Right.
And when that went away and wasn't that cool anymore, it didn't stand up. But then the back half of that album was like beautifully deep, rich EDM singles. Her voice, she was so rangy. She sang the highest recorded notes she's ever sung, like in her both mixed belt and her whistles on the back half of that album. It was so incredible. What were your favorite moments, if you remember, of the Dangerous Woman era? If that was actually, yeah, like you said, that was your favorite Ariana era, right?
Oh, easily. So I love all those singles, and I actually think that most of them have stood the test of time. Like I just listened to Into You and Side to Side last week and Be All Right. All still bangers, all still hold up. But I will agree that the second half, the back half is really like where the money is. I think I love Bad Decisions. That might be my favorite. I also love
We're agreed there.
the new Better Forever Boy.
Yeah.
And then another one that I didn't give as much attention to at the time that I've recently come to love more and more is Touch It. That's low key an absolute banger. So
hell yes.
I honestly think that album is no skips. I don't love certain songs on it, but I will listen to that album all the way through, even 8 years later.
Touch It is incredible. So intense. The synths are so big on that song. It's like a rocket ship taking off. And for that to be the last song, she usually ended on something really delicate, and she ended on like a rocket fuel ride. Was so cool. Bad Decisions is incredible. I have one skip on that album, which is the Macy Gray.
Okay, tell me. Oh, wait. Can I guess?
I'm sorry, I told you.
It's gonna be Let Me Love You or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Oh, no. That was the Lil Wayne one. What's the Macy Gray one called? It's Leave Me Lonely.
Leave Me. I almost said I Try. I'm such a simple fan of Macy Gray. Leave Me Lonely I think is not great. She was doing this
There's
like
some weird stuff that happens in there.
Burlesque pop kind of genre with some of those songs,
Yeah.
and that one was a little strange. But yeah, agreed. So maybe because of the runtime or the length, she'll have more real estate with which to like do something interesting. I can't imagine
so
what
I lied. It's not 14, 15, 16. It's actually 13. So that's on me. But she has actually released the entire track list. So we have titles and we have songwriters for the whole album.
Okay, give me the titles and I'm gonna pick my two favorite songs, and then you tell me what your two favorite songs are. Do you have them in front of you?
I have it in front of me right here. So it's 13 songs. The first one is called Intro, parentheses, End of the World. The second one is called Bye, like goodbye, but just bye.
Yeah.
The third one is called Don't Want to Break Up Again, which sounds like it's about the husband that she broke up with.
I'm gonna love that one. I can already tell.
Probably yes. That's also a Max Martin Ilya.
Hell yes, so. I'm gonna love that one.
The next one is called Saturn Returns Interlude, which, interestingly enough, Saturn Returning was also referenced on that first single from Kacey's album. So these women of about 30 years old are feeling their age.
That's right.
The next one is the title track, Eternal Sunshine.
Also, on the Saturn train, SZA's most recent deluxe single from SOS is Saturn. They're all hitting it.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're all feeling that Saturn return. Track number 6 is called Supernatural.
Okay.
Track number 7 is called True Story. I don't know what this means. Track number 8 is called The Boy Is Mine.
Yeah, I saw that.
She is a writer on it and so it's not a cover because it's just, I mean, obviously I wouldn't expect her to put a cover like that in the middle of her album, but interesting that such an iconic song title she's repurposing. Number 9 is Yes And, the single that we have already heard.
Yep.
Followed by track 10, We Can't Be Friends, parentheses, Wait for Your Love, which has already been announced as the second single, which is going to drop the same day as the album. So
I was literally just about to say, that one's giving me single energy. That feels like another house anthem.
Yeah. So that one's going to come out on Friday with the album.
Work.
And then the last 3 are I Wish I Hated You.
Okay.
Imperfect for You. And the last song is called Ordinary Things, and it is featuring Nana. And for the Arianators, which, side note, I love that fandom name. It's so uncreative.
It's chaotic.
The Arianators will know that Nana is her grandmother. So in some way, shape, or form, Ariana Grande's grandmother will be featured on this album.
Oh, I thought it was like Nana, and it was an artist. Yes. Her Nona's in
Nona, yes, I'm sorry.
Bloodline. She's in the intro to Bloodline.
That's right.
Yeah. That's funny that I somehow like spiritually found the singles just based off the phrases. What do you think you're gonna like just from the words?
Well, I would agree with you. I think you picked out the singles. I would love to hear what she's going to do with The Boy Is Mine.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about the title track, because that, I assume, is
right
the theme or the song that she decided to base the album around. So I'm wondering what the thesis statement will be there, if you will.
Yeah. You know what makes me think of is the title track on Sweetener, though. I could have done without that on the album. It was not good.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But then, Thank You Next. So it kind of goes both ways.
Full banger. What did you think of Positions? What was your position on Positions?
I thought that Positions was good but uneven. I think there were super high highs on there. Like, I love My Hair. Great song.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And then what was the one that she did with the one with Ty Dolla $ign?
Safety Net is a good song.
Safety Net, that's a great song. And then the one with The Weeknd is pretty good too, Off the Table. All the collabs on that album were hitting. And then I also really liked Just Like Magic, even though I recognize that it's not a good song.
Something I remember you loved that. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved that song. But yeah, those were the ones from, but then it felt like there was a lot of filler on there too.
Yeah, it felt like a mixtape.
I remember you were kind of iffy on it.
I thought that album was a mixtape. It was short songs. Everything was 2:30, 2:40. No final choruses. Like it felt like ideas that she didn't finish, and it sounded like ideas that she didn't finish. And the sonic bed of it was very pretty. It was like Honeymoon Avenue plus Thank You Next as an album. It was like the butterfly, lovely string rainbows plus the trap pop Had a Baby, and it was cute. And when it hit, I loved it. I thought the single was gorgeous. I thought Positions with like nice headphones had beautiful production in it and was very well done. But everything was so short and kind of like not saying a lot. I don't know. Felt like a transitional era, and I guess it was her pandemic album, so it was just kind of like
it was absolutely her pandemic album.
Yeah, so maybe it was just like the I don't know, the sourdough bread that she had been making for the year,
She was like, I just need to start fresh and delete all these from my hard drive. So here you go.
Yeah, she burned her G drive after that. All right, now on the whole, for the full body of work, what Pitchfork ranking. And for those of you that don't know, Pitchfork continues to this day. I don't know how long they've been doing this. I don't even really know how long they've been out. Do you know, Alec?
They are an invention of the late 90s. Like, they're very much internet age. It was some college guy who was in his dorm room in like 1997 who started doing it, and it just sort of grew from there.
And it was at the time very, very, very alternative. Like, they wouldn't actually review anything pop. And then the digital age kind of pulled them in because the digital marketing wouldn't get clicks on these albums that no one had ever heard of. And so they didn't get funding and all that stuff, it seemed like. So now they just review these pop albums, and the comments, if you follow Pitchfork on any social media platform, half of the comments are from boomers and Gen Xers pissed off that they're even reviewing any of this stuff. So like, they post something about Taylor, and half the comments are just like, oh my God, y'all have gone the way of the, whatever. Like, this is so basic and boring, but it's like they've been doing this for like, I don't know, 10 years now. So
yeah.
I don't know. But they do assign a numeric ranking to every album as if it were normalized on some 1 or potentially 0 to 10 scale, right? I think that's the scale. Most things falling between 5 and 8. And I think anything 8 or above is deemed best new music. And they've made some weird choices. Obviously, I think that's part of their brand, is making really strong choices. And I don't necessarily know their review. I think you know their reviews by reviewer better than I do. I don't necessarily know the takes based on the last name of who's writing it. I don't think I have that level of association, but I can kind of expect what they'll like and what they don't like, the same way I've come to learn what The Guardian likes and what they don't like. For example, I just know who they villainize. The Guardian hates Ed Sheeran, and I think Pitchfork hates certain pop artists.
I have a couple reviewers there that I like and follow and generally enjoy. Like, I know that you love Alexis Petridis from The Guardian.
From Guardian.
A big one for
I
you,
trust him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For me at Pitchfork, it's Sam Zadomsky, I feel like, is usually on the money.
Yes,
and then Rawia Kamer is like my goddess. Like, she just always says exactly what I'm thinking. So those are kind of my big two from Pitchfork.
Did they review pop albums?
Oh, 100%. Rawia's big, like, viral moment was when she gave kind of a lukewarm review to the big Lizzo album, like the first Lizzo album that came out after she broke big. And Lizzo tweeted it and said something along the lines of, if you don't make music, you shouldn't be allowed to write shitty album reviews. And so all of the Lizzo stans got sicked on Rawia, but she had an amazing, thoughtful, critical, incisive response that actually got Lizzo to back down and say, oh, geez, you know what? You're right. I'm sorry. So, like, that was a big
Whoa, really?
Yeah, that was one of the moments where I was like, okay, I rock with you.
Oh, wow. It's not common that the artist will actually back down. And I don't necessarily expect them to.
Yeah, like Lizzo deleted the tweet and everything. Yeah, no, completely.
Like, they can rep their stuff. I honestly don't even want to like every single album from the artist that I love. I want them to do weird things and to experiment, but that's interesting. I mean, that album wasn't great to me, so I would be open to reading an oppositional piece on it for sure.
And the thing was, it wasn't even oppositional. It wasn't like, oh, this sucks. It was more just sort of like, this is tepid and not the star turn that she thinks it is.
Yeah. I felt it was tepid. All right, that makes sense. Okay, maybe I should like bookmark her by last name and read more of her reviews. But the 0 to 10 scale, I have actually seen 1-0. I think they have 1-0, and they post it as like clickbait every once in a while of like, hey, reminder that we did actually give a 0 to an album once, and I don't know who it was.
Yes. I know exactly who it was. It was do you remember that song Are You Gonna Be My Girl, that Australian rock band Jet?
Yes, Jet got a 0?
It was the album after Are You Gonna Be My Girl. It was 2006. I think the album was called Get Born, I want to say, and that is the album that Pitchfork gave a 0.0. And I think the whole review was like, it was a picture of like a chimpanzee urinating or something like that.
Oh no. Okay, so
yeah, they decided to go in and troll.
Oh, it's called Shine On is the album.
Oh, Shine On. No, Get Born. You're right. Get Born was the one that had Are You Gonna Be My Girl on it. Shine On is the album. That's right.
It's a monkey peeing in its own mouth is the visual that was presented.
Right.
And they've actually, maybe my browser's not working. It seems like they've actually removed the text. Maybe it was too controversial. They just have the zero and they don't actually have the text of the review anymore. Wow. All right. I've never listened. I didn't listen to more than that one song by Jet, so I have no idea if that's baseless or not, but they're not afraid of hot takes. I mean, I felt like maybe in the 2010s, like between 2015 and 2020, the hot takes were for the sake of hot takes. Because they felt like maybe all of music media was getting too complimentary. And so they were like, let's remind everyone that it's worth being critical sometimes. Like the Apple Music reviews were all like anything Zane Lowe does is so flowery. And I like watching artists being treated well and being complimented and feeling safe to talk about their work for sure. I'm not saying that, especially non-musicians, as like Lizzo alluded to, should like tear apart a piece of work that they didn't create. Zayn is a musician, I think, and I think he's actually very much a musician. I just think he like blows smoke up their ass all the time and like says nothing, does not ask any hard questions. And I do think artists should have a couple of hard questions asked. And like in the digital age, the Zach Sang show, who I will always think this guy is like 14 years old, but he's like kind of close in age to me. He just interviewed Ariana for the like 5th sequential album, and the commenters were all over him for asking basically nothing, which I don't expect her press team to allow anything through about the divorce or about her personal life. I mean, and I think that's reasonable, but it is true that no one has to, own anything basically that they're being lambasted for. They just get to talk about their albums. And so I'm both like pro and against sometimes. I don't think it's good to be mean, but I'm here for Pitchfork telling them how it is. On a scale of 1 to 10, knowing they don't give many 10s, what do you think the most likely either range or on the dot number will be from Pitchfork if they should review Ariana's Eternal Sunshine?
I'm getting 6.7 vibes.
Mine ended in a 0.7 too. That's hilarious. I think maximum 7. Max 7.
Yeah, I don't think it's higher.
And I think as low as 5.7. Somewhere in there. Yeah. I think she's got the resources to make great music, and so I don't think it could be that bad. And we've heard of really great pop songs so far, so I don't think it's going to be bad, but I think they might be bored. All right, so that's Ariana. Maybe we can circle back and actually see what the number is. And maybe I'll guess 6, just 6.0. Maybe that'll be my guess. Yeah.
I like that.
The second and maybe final one that we can cover today, which is soon, is Kacey. Kacey Musgraves, who, as a country pop queen, psych rock also, I don't know if I'm qualifying her exactly correctly, has had a string of popular albums, one more than the other, at least in the last 2, which was 2017's, 18's Golden Hour, which was incredibly warmly received. And I believe album of the year contender.
It was the album of the year.
Oh, it won. Okay, good. That's what I thought.
It won.
That's what I thought. And I think that's deserved. I love that. I thought that album was extraordinary. And maybe she kind of brought country back to the gays in a way that like Beyonce's Daddy Lessons in 2016 started to, but didn't commit to. And then Kacey was like, no, I can get them. And maybe now she's doing the most. Tell me a little bit about what, like, the one that came between that was about her divorce, and it was called Star-Crossed. And I think you like that significantly more than I did. How would you characterize what you expect out of Kacey and like where she's been recently?
Well, that's a great question. I think that Golden Hour was obviously what propelled her into the stratosphere. I remember at the time it was released, I was about to go to grad school in Chicago. And by the time she was touring, I was in Chicago. So that was where I saw her. And I saw her in January or February of 2019. And the ticket was something like $40. It was at a 1,000 person venue, very appropriate for where she was at the time. And she scheduled a sort of second follow-on tour for later that year that revisited a lot of the same cities. But in between those 2 tour legs, she won Album of the Year. And when I went to go see if I could go to that second tour, it was like $300, $400 resale tickets. The venues were, 3 or 4 times bigger. Like that was how quickly it happened for her.
Damn.
And I think that when that happened and she reached that level, she probably felt a lot of pressure to come back with something that would be seen as worthy of her stardom. And so I think that she kind of fell in the trap of trying to make her own lemonade, if you will, which I think happened to a lot of people. I think it happened to a lot of people in those years, like the first 3 or 4 or 5 years after 2016. And you remember, I mean, it was a visual album that she came back with, Star-Crossed, and that was released on Paramount Plus, I want to say. Like, she did the whole Beyonce Prestige release on streaming thing with
wow.
you know, an artistic trailer and everything. And the unfortunate thing was that her message, while powerful and useful and worthy, it was all sort of about picking up the pieces after a divorce and finding self-worth and self-love, which is very important. It kind of lacked the really personal edge that set Lemonade apart. I mean, Beyonce did everything in Lemonade. It was a story about her and infidelity in her marriage, but it was also a story about intergenerational trauma, the history of Black women in America. It drew very big parallels between what was happening in her personal life and what has been happening in this country culturally for centuries. And so that kind of made the scope of it all feel very big. And Kacey kind of had the opposite problem. It was a huge project for a very small scope, just, you know, her failed marriage. And I think there are great songs on that album that are really interestingly written and produced, that I will listen to in isolation all the time, but it doesn't hang together as one cohesive work very well. And then there are also, you know, just out and out skips. So I love it kind of for like its inconsistency and its mess and unevenness. And there are certain things on there that I think are like among the best that she's ever done. But I'm not surprised that it kind of flopped. And I remember I went to see her on the Star-Crossed tour, and people would go bananas for the Golden Hour songs, which were at that point, you know, one cycle out of date. And then kind of just like stand there and accept the Star-Crossed songs without really, you know, getting into them. So yeah, it was an interesting time for her, for sure.
That is an interesting point about not everyone on this list where they, and many of them have, like, to release a divorce or a breakup album. We don't necessarily, as like culturally, want to hear it from all of them, and it's not necessarily the most interesting story from all of them. Like J-Lo's newest album is the opposite of a breakup album, but maybe if you and I ever at some point during this year listen to that album, it's out, you know. You know,
I honestly think we should listen and watch. We should do both the album and the movie.
Right. You know, it's so dark of Spotify. Somewhere in the last 2 years, they started putting, if you're on desktop, which I think most people are not, so maybe this is like kind of a hidden feature, they show you the stream counts. They actually show you how many times it's been streamed. Like, maybe let's see how many people.
Oh no, I live for that feature. That is like my bread and butter. I love that shit.
The lowest stream count on the current Jennifer Lopez album is like 260,000. I mean, which, you know, to us plebeians feels that's a lot of people. Like, if I ever made something heard by that many people, that's amazing. But that's not, for Main Pop Girlie, that's not good. That's not great.
Right.
But like, I feel like maybe people just don't care. Like, they were happy for her to get married to Ben Affleck, and then it was like, oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't think we care. Ariana's been in and out of like the breakup capacity. This is ostensibly, it is her divorce album, actually. Kacey has done hers. It didn't really hit. Beyonce has done hers. It is the category leading, like, canonical, here's how to make a divorce, or not. It wasn't divorce, but it like was a like marital suffering album. She has told everyone what it could be, and in a sense what it should be, in order for people, like consumers, to care, like weave a story and like look inward. Taylor's entire career, dare I say, is his like makeups and breakups. On the rest of this, I think Maren is about to release her divorce album. Kelly Clarkson released hers last year. I don't know anything about Lana's personal life. Is this going to be a divorce or relationship album of hers?
She has never been married, as far as I know.
Okay.
And I don't actually know that she's dating anyone now. There was a period of time where she was dating a hot cop, which like made people feel very conflicted, because on the one hand hot, on the other hand cop. But she's always been the type to speak about her life in a very much more abstract way.
Right.
So I don't know that her specific relationships have ever showed up in her music the way that, for example, they have in Taylor's.
Yeah, it's been more veiled. She's so much more cinematic about it.
Yes.
Shakira's releasing her divorce album for sure. Do you remember I don't know how long ago the divorce actually happened. This is so far ago in the far in the past now in the press cycle. I don't know if you remember this, but when she broke up with, I think she was married to a soccer, aka football player. And I don't know what happened, but like she positioned the equivalent of like a voodoo doll towards the house of his mother, who they had purchased a house for across the street. And like he moved out, but his mother still lived in this house or something and was playing one of her songs or something. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yes, 100% that happened. And I'm trying to remember the specific details, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
So that's the energy around hers. Gaga, I feel like Chromatica was a breakup album. I can't remember if that's true, but that's what felt like part of it, right?
She has been dating that weird music executive guy for a while, I feel like. Her big breakup was
Taylor or something.
Extremely hot Taylor Kinney.
Yes.
He's on one of those Chicago shows, Chicago Fire or Chicago Med or Chicago PD or whatever the fuck. But
Fake Cop.
Right, Fake Cop. But that was a long time ago, and I feel like she's been in a pretty steady relationship for a while, but I could be wrong.
Right. So, like, in general, the breakup album's inevitable. In my Bjork series, I pointed to the fact that I think the pinnacle of her career was after all the topics she's covered, be it like fracking in Iceland or like moving to a big city, the biggest commercial success and artistic merit that she's kind of been celebrated for was her breakup album, her divorce album. So it seems inevitable. And I don't think that people shouldn't take to art to process divorce. It just seems like, I don't know, maybe we're getting a little tired of it, but I don't think Ariana's in a great position to sell that story to us, but I think 2 albums out, Kacey maybe won't be lamenting it anymore. Although I think Kacey has also released her track list, and some of it is still feels a little breakup-y. Have you seen the track list?
Well, it could be a little breakup-y, but she's just talking about now her post-divorce relationship because she was dating that poet guy for like a year and a half who always seemed very pretentious and always seemed very much like the meme about the Rupi Kaur poems, like the things that seem deep when you first read them, but then you realize they're very surface level and specious in kind of a funny way.
I don't know, but that
he always gave
resonates.
me those vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they broke up, I want to say like 6 months ago or something. So I feel like some of that will make its way into this album, but not so much in like a divorce context, but more so just in I'm 35, I'm too old for shit that doesn't serve me anymore.
I think some of these girls need to be told when Saturn actually returns, because some of them are saying it many, many, many years after. It starts at 27 and it finishes at 29, right?
Well, it's funny because Kacey says that in the very first line of the song Deeper Well. She says, my Saturn has returned. When I turned 27, everything changed. But this song came out now and she's 35. So that was 8 years ago. So she's been going through it.
It's giving Adele, who famously titles her albums the age that she is when the story that she wants to tell unfolds. And usually in the first 2 albums, it was like within 2 years. So like when 19 came out, she was turning 21. When 21 came out, she was turning like 23, 24. When 25 came out, she was fully 30. And when 30 came out, she's like 36 or something. Right. So they don't actually depict any time recently. I guess the creation cycle prevents that from happening. But do you think that maybe we'll do the same exercise with Kacey? What do you think your perception of this work will be based on maybe the first 2 songs that came out? And what pitchfork rating would you prospectively assign to the album?
Well, we talked about this off the pod, offline, and I told you that I was not really feeling the lead single, the title track, Deeper Well, when it first came out, because what I loved about her last 2 albums was sort of the more unconventional songwriting that she leans into. Like, she has a real talent for identifying melodies, harmonies, and chord progressions that sound simultaneously completely novel, but then also totally familiar. And that's a really underrated skill, and I have not heard a lot of that in other places. And so I always look for that from her, and I wasn't getting that from Deeper Well. It felt very conventional to me. I don't think that it crystallized for me until the second single came out. I think it's called Too Good to Be True. I've been listening to it a lot the last week, and I think what hit me about it is that it's just the platonic ideal of really simple, clean songwriting with smart but not overcomplicated vocal lines, really to the point, direct lyrics. And now I kind of understand where I think she's going, and it makes me very excited for it. And I honestly think that the critics are going to love it, and the radio and the general public are going to completely ignore it. But I'm feeling 8.1 from Pitchfork. That's my guess.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting take, that the critics will love it, the general public will ignore it, and then you expect to align with whom? You think you'll love it?
I think that I will end up loving it, yes, even though it's not what I thought it would be.
Got it. I am much less of a anthological Kacey stan or fan. I just don't know her up until Golden Hour quite as well. I have gone back and revisited, and she's got such bright spots. Also, weirdly, I think her Christmas special is like the greatest modern pop singers streamable Christmas special. I watch it every year. It's so good. But
it's incredible.
It's her song with Lana specifically, I think, is the greatest modern Christmas duet from any of the pop girls. And I can't remember even what, I think it's I'll Be Home for Christmas. It's unbelievable. But I think the way that you characterized her ability is right on the money. She paints like a canvas. She creates a sound that it like creates a memory that you maybe haven't had, but it invites you in. It feels familiar but new. That Golden Hour was, and you've actually found the chords, right? Like you sit and play them sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. That's like my jam.
Yeah, it's amazing. I hope to love this too. I think I will love this. I did really like Deeper Well a lot. Deeper Well to me just sounds kind of like her response to Maren's response to Golden Hour. Deeper Well sounds like she wrote it for Maren for Humble Quest, and I'm fine with that. I loved Humble Quest.
Totally.
I could see Maren singing that, which is why I like it. And maybe, I'll go for an 8 too. I think she's due for an 8. Maybe that's our sign to wrap up, since the Biloxi combo of Wi-Fi and cell service is pulling you away. But y'all, we have such a big year. We have so many releases. I'm not a big maybe we could do a first listen on like Instagram or something and like create something funny out of it. But we will definitely circle back to these releases. And then once it's already March. I almost said once it turns March. It's March 3rd as we speak. We've got Beyonce and Taylor coming. So there's a lot ahead of us. So
less than 4 weeks till Beyonce.
Oh my God. Do you think it's a full album? I mean, it just seems improbable.
Oh, yeah, it's a full album.
It's just like, it's
a full album.
This?
It's absolutely a full album.
It's so
it's
quick.
Because she recorded all this stuff years ago. She was writing and recording this stuff in like 2020, 2021, because Tina said in an Instagram post when Texas Hold'em dropped, she said, "Oh, I've loved this song for years, and I'm so glad you all get to hear it now too." And everyone was like, "Years?" So apparently this is like, she was writing and recording all of this stuff in tandem with Act 1 during the height of the pandemic.
It's very the filming of the Lord of the Rings, the whole trilogy all at once. Yes. And then she staggers the releases.
Exactly. So
yeah,
exactly. So we'll get there. We'll see it.
Tina is the most hilarious part of Beyonce's life, bar none. She is always saying things she shouldn't. Her posts on Instagram are always pixelated screenshots that she hasn't cropped correctly. She's always spelling things wrong. But you know that Beyonce knows that the Beehive loves her for that. Like they see her for it. And so she lets her do it. But she's leaked things like a couple times and then had to delete them. But God bless Tina, who I think just turned 70, if that's possible. I think I saw that somewhere, which is unreal. And Tina got a big moment at the hair care launch release where like they did like a hair show that Tina used to do. So I love that Bee's taking her along for the ride. But yes, friends, we'll get there. We have a lot ahead of us, and literally just as far as this list is concerned, there's like 20 more main pop girl albums alone, and maybe before we wrap up real quick, like there's a lot of big tours happening right now. Like Olivia Rodrigo's tour for Guts is happening right now.
Oh, I know.
Blanketing social media. Honestly, it makes me want to go. It does look very young tween girl infested, which is not necessarily a vibe that I would do well in, but I want to see her, and she looks like she's killing it.
I would kill to be there, not just for her. I love her and I really want to see her, but also because the opener is Chapel Roan, my new obsession.
Damn, you love Chapel.
I know. I got to figure out a way to make it happen. I don't know if it will, but
well, she's at Coachella. If you can make Coachella happen, you can go see Chapel.
At least be in the right part of the country for that. So
maybe we can very randomly make Coachella happen. We always do see each other in late April.
That is true. Actually, this would be great for the pod if we could make this happen.
We go live from the pod. And would we get influencer treatment? Hey guys, I have 6 followers.
We could, you know what? You never know until you try, and you only fail if you don't try. So
I would love to walk around Coachella expecting VIP treatment until I get it and just con them into it. Perfect. All right, well, Alec, thank you so much for dialing in. Y'all, you don't know how much energy I'm getting from just sitting here over the phone/Wi-Fi lines talking to one of my best friends, and it's wonderful to share this digital space with you and to live in a time when this is possible. I'm excited to put this out. I don't know if it'll be 1 or 2 pieces, but we're very hopeful that you'll come back if you'll have us.
Yes, please do. It's a lot more fun when you have people involved. The more the merrier. So, yeah. Come back.
The more the friggin' merrier. And with that, y'all, thanks for tuning into The Vocal. Follow along on the socials. Alec, do you want any new followers? You want to plug yourself?
Well, you know what? I will plug myself when I'm back on social media. I'm currently on a hiatus, but in the future, I got it.
Okay, great. And you can follow us along at he's_Galt on... This will probably go on YouTube, just with like a cover art, and then on Instagram. This will be on Spotify. We'll get it on all the other platforms at some point. And we'll see y'all next time. Thanks for tuning in.